Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 117, Assertiveness and Motivation, Owning Your Why and Not Losing Yourself. So as you know, this month, we're diving into the conversation about how assertiveness is not just about speaking up and saying no, but also about owning our motivation and our commitments. And so this week, I want to focus in on motivation alone, because I think it's so important to our well-being and our quality of life, our happiness, what gets us out of bed in the morning, what helps us feel alive, what helps us feel complete. So I think whether we realize it or not, our beliefs drive our motivation level at any given moment. There can be negative motivators that work very well. They get us up and running pretty quick, like fear and pain, because we want to get rid of the fear and we want to get rid of the pain. The amount of motivation that we have obviously can be directly correlated to how much fear or how much pain we're in, okay? And so the bigger the stakes, the more our adrenaline pumps and the more we are go-getters. I think in reality, pain gets us in the door. Pain gets us in the door to therapy, to coaching, to making big changes, because we just can't stand it anymore. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Or something so awful might happen, and you really want to do everything you can to prevent that, to not lose that job, not lose that relationship, not lose your health. But I want to focus on the fact that we don't want to have life have to show us the way all the time. We want to be more intentional, so we focus on the positive motivators like meaning and passion and purpose and other beliefs and values that we might hold. I think as it pertains to assertiveness and self-confidence, I think there are a few other aspects as well that we're going to explore today. But as you're listening all month, what I want you to do, hopefully, is to see what resonates with you, what motivates you and why. Because at the end of the day, guys, that's all that matters. As long as it's not always fear, as long as it's not always pain, and that we are reacting to life and putting out fires and feeling like a victim, that's not good. Again, as we do more personal growth, I think we naturally want to and begin to be more proactive and take more responsibility. And that's the first one I want to mention today is personal responsibility. I saw a mention online by an accountability coach, and they say, why is personal responsibility so important? It's because it's when you take full accountability for your actions, decisions, thoughts, and more. And that's crucial because it helps regulate your life properly and prevent you from derailing your mental and physical health. Now, that's a pretty heavy statement, but I can tell you as a therapist and a coach, that is so, so true. And when I help people find a way out, it's first taking ownership. A definition that I have for personal responsibility is owning your thoughts, your feelings, your needs, your dreams, your passions, and your boundaries. I think it helps you focus on the fact that it's your job to speak up about these things, not for others to read your mind and magically honor them. It would be great, right? But that's not reality. Taking personal responsibility means entertaining risk, and it means going beyond talking about the things that matter to you, but also make that happen with your feet. It means doing the big things, the new things, the scary things, and making the big changes. So that's why I think it is a part of motivation. Another aspect of motivation, I think, is your why. That's a more obvious one. Why this matters to you. This could be integrity driven for you. could be experience-driven, or simply an innate desire that you don't even understand the origin of yet, and that's okay. Doesn't really matter. What matters is that it matters to you. I don't think things matter to us for no reason unless we swallowed values handed down to us when we were young and we never really differentiated from our family of origin, perhaps, or whatever environment we grew up in, and we never gave it second thought. So kind of like blind beliefs in things and values that maybe you haven't really sat with yourself. So again, if you haven't really taken a look at your values, listen to our previous episodes on them. Go online. There's plenty of online exercises on values that are really helpful. And also, maybe you've changed, and that's okay. Life showed you some things, perhaps. So values and beliefs. Maybe like honesty, truth, justice, compassion, love, family, country, etc., etc. And in terms of your beliefs, maybe you believe that we are here to help each other and do some good. Maybe you believe that it's really important for you to be financially secure. Maybe you believe in being a good citizen, in a good parent. It's whatever drives you. And that's the thing. Beliefs and values are driving our bus all the time. They drive all our behavior, whether we are aware of it or not. And I think it really is helpful, not only for our character, but our sense of self-acceptance, self-love, and self-confidence to really get in touch with and be okay with what we say our values and our beliefs are, and to really question some distorted beliefs and maybe some old values that either we've outgrown and they don't work in our life anymore, or they were never really ours. A big part of identity is risking believing and valuing things, especially when some folks around you don't. Okay? Because we risk rejection and abandonment. Another driver for motivation, I think, is personal experience, those defining moments that we have. And I think good or bad, they imprint us. And I think they give meaning to things that maybe another person would even think of or be passionate about. Maybe they came from childhood, maybe things you witnessed others go through, either in childhood or early in life, and you made some choices in your mind. Either I really want to be like that, or I never want to let that thing happen to me, sort of thing. Okay, so moving away from pain or towards something that we think is a good thing. So defining moments, experiences, think about that. Motivation can also come from our gifts and our passions. You know, perhaps you're a helper or a leader and you feel compelled to do, to help, to solve problems, to create, to make things happen. And we know that it's going to take assertiveness and confidence along with the energy and genuine interest to sustain you, to help you stay motivated, not just to get motivated, but to stay motivated because it matters to you, it is interesting to you, you think about it a lot, you're good at it. You know, the intersection of our gifts and passions is where we are supposedly meant to be, where we are happiest, where we feel most confident, where we feel most alive and most grounded. I have witnessed that so many times with clients who have found that, and how wonderful it is and how it just changes their whole sense of being. They're just different. So those are some drivers for motivation. Not every one of them, of course, but I want you to think about where you are. How much work have you done on this already? And if you haven't done any, that's okay. It's a great journey to embark on. It's part of the journey of finding you and defining you, or perhaps maybe redefining you, and that's good too. That's the beautiful thing here. No matter where you are in the process, you can always keep going forward. You can always make changes. So that's motivation. Now I want to talk about motivation killers. How do we lose motivation? How does that typically happen? What's going on with us? Why is it that some people can follow through to the finish line and some people can't, and they give up midstream, and they throw in the towel, they get frustrated, or it just falls to the wayside. It's not that they don't still, quote unquote, want to do it, but they've let it go to the back burner and it's still sitting there. I'm going to mention some of these today. It's not a complete list, but I think some of the important ones are here. And again, as you're listening to this, I want you to think about and remember, sometimes this is really insidious, therefore not very obvious. Typically, it's slowly over time, day in, day out, bit by bit, gradual, that this happens, okay? Because remember, if your brain saw a huge 180 happening in your life on a given day, it would stop and pay close attention to that. Or maybe say, no, I'm not going to allow that to happen to me. I really want to fulfill this goal. So like we've talked about here on the show about being around manipulation and toxicity, same thing. You're not going to notice it perhaps in the beginning, but it's over time, bit by bit, that it slips away from you. One of the biggest ones is negative people. Now, and these may not be people who are negative all the time, but in reality, if you step back and look at the painting, they are folks who are in so much fear of trusting the good and being hopeful and encouraging when you say you want to do something, or you're in the middle of doing something, or you're ambivalent about taking a risk. That's when we're the most vulnerable, right? They often have big self-esteem issues too, so there may be some jealousy there, some fear of abandonment that they are not even aware of. They're just trying to help you out, quote unquote. Make sure you're careful there. Make sure you don't spend too much money on that new class that you're taking, things like that. And here's the thing. If you're listening to this enough over time, like you have enough exposure to these people where they're not in your life once or twice a year, maybe they're people that you work with, maybe they're people in your family or your neighbors or your good friends that you are often exposed to, this will impact your outlook no matter what you think, because your brain's taking it in, and over time it starts to believe it, especially if there's no one else saying anything to the contrary, okay? Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality, remember? It's going to start believing it. It's going to wear you down. So look at the environments that you're in right now. And this is not to pick on these poor people. This is for you to take responsibility around A, how much time you hang with them, and B, how much do you share of your vulnerable dreams, let's say, your goals, maybe your struggle in pursuing those goals. Maybe you're in the middle, right, where it's getting hard and it's getting boring and you're not seeing the payoff yet. And it would be so easy to just ditch it and go back to your box. So think about your environments, and conversely, think about what you're sharing and with whom. The other big one is rescuing. So if you are so busy focusing on what your boss, your partner, your family, your kids need, you're not perhaps going to have time and energy for your own things. And this happens slowly over time. Or with some people, a big event will happen where they had to stop what they were doing and maybe take care of their spouse because their spouse became ill or lost their job and whatever, right? Or your kid had something blow up or happen, or your aging parent had a health issue that you put your things to the side and never went back and picked them up. Okay. So it can become chronic, or it can just be slow and insidious where you fall down into the hole. Okay. And you'll begin to make up things and rationalize this when questioned, or maybe when it hits you and you start realizing, you say, well, it'd be really selfish of me to, put that first. He needs me or she needs me right now. I can always pick that up later. So rescuing others, focusing on others. One of the reasons why we can do this too, guys, is because deep down we're terrified to make our dream real. Because that's really scary. And what if you screw up? And what if you're wrong? And what if you're not as talented as you thought you were? And all that stuff, all the imposter syndrome stuff, that let's admit it, it's a hell of a lot easier to then go focus on nurturing someone else or solving their problem or being what they need you to be right now. So we can do it as an escape from the fear of the unknown, from perfectionism, feeling like we have to do it perfectly or not at all, like we talked about recently. So I want you to think about where your focus has been on average in any given week. And outside of the acute things that happen, how much focus have you allowed yourself to have on you? And speaking of that, another big way that we can lose motivation is ignoring our needs. These are not wants, guys. These are needs. Maybe you haven't been getting enough rest. Maybe there just hasn't been enough time in the week to focus on your own stuff because you're so busy taking care of everyone else. Or rescuing people in your family from doing the chores they should be doing. Or taking care of themselves financially. Things like that. Maybe you haven't had time with friends to relax and to talk about cool, creative things that you've been wanting to do. Maybe you haven't met the need of time alone, take a walk, to sit and think, to regroup, to take stock of where you are. Even more basic, your self-care, right? Your physical care of self. Your space, your finances, your mental and emotional health. How is that? And how much have you been attending to that, really? So ignoring our needs makes us disown part of who we are. And it's really hard to be motivated when you're only half of you on a given day. The other thing we can deny that can kill our motivation is denying our opinions or what we want. Because for some reason, it's not going to go over well in our current environment or environments. Maybe you want to change. Maybe you want a makeover. Maybe you want to do some things different with your time. Perhaps you want to focus and get back to that project you were working on. Maybe things are starting to change in your life, but you're afraid to rock the boat or look selfish or freak them out. Because maybe those close to you can't handle it. Or at least you fear that, and you allow that to keep you from doing things. And that is key, because the reality is, as long as we're being good humans, right, we're not putting them in harm's way by focusing on ourselves, then it's our fear. It's our fear that we can't handle the tantrum that they're going to have. That's the reality. Another thing that can block our motivation is lack of self-discipline. And this is a big deal. You know, it's so easy to start out and be all excited, this is going to be great, and think you're going to be motivated forever. Then you get detoured. And you get detoured by focusing outside of yourself again, maybe not having good boundaries, because these are all boundary issues that we're talking about here today. And if we're not setting limits around our time, our money, our energy, our space, how in the hell are we going to have time and money for our own dreams and to be able to make them happen, or even have the energy to entertain doing that? So self-discipline. It's also boundaries with ourselves, the internal boundaries. Are we going to create a routine where we can set aside time each week for our own stuff? Where we can get our thoughts together to speak up when we need to? Where we can have the confidence to say no because we spent time each week with healthy people shoring us up and reminding us how healthy it is to say no. Things like that. Not medicating and running with things we can escape into instead of taking the risk and doing the scary things for ourselves each week. This is all connected to emotional immaturity. It's an awful term, but it's true. Because kids want instant gratification. It's really hard for a 5-year-old to wait 6 weeks for something to happen. They can't even get their head wrapped around how long that is. You and I can. But that instant gratification, because we have so much anxiety around trusting the process and being realistic, trusting that even if you can't see the light yet or the finish line, to learn endurance and patience, to hang in there with no shiny thing to focus and meditate on, but to just do the work, one foot in front of the other, knowing that all the dirty work pays off eventually, but maybe we don't have control over how and when and where that's going to happen. Immaturity is I want things my way and in my timing. Maturity means, reality is it's going to happen when it happens. But it ain't going to happen unless I do the day in, day out footwork to make that happen. Unless I have the discipline to stick with it, even on days when I don't want to. We know this when it comes to working out and eating better. Why do we forget this when it comes to everything else? It's all the same thing. Every little thing that we do adds up and keeps us motivation. Motivation comes from doing. We may think we have motivation to go do something. And yes, we might have a little adrenaline rush in the beginning, like, oh, I want to make this happen. But to continue on the path, to keep finishing the marathon, it's because you've already come so far. It means you were holding on to yourself. And that's the big deal here, because motivation killers that we're talking about today are all about becoming so disconnected from who you are at the core that it's really hard to feel motivated and hopeful. I think we need to feel confident and grounded. We need to own our truth and trusting ourselves enough to make that truth evident in our life, to make it show up, to make it look real in our surroundings, in our behaviors, in our environments, like those we hang out with, what we focus on, what we pay money for, what we pay attention to, what we make time for in our life. Priorities show themselves. And we'll get into more of that next episode when we focus on commitment and congruence. But I really do think it's a lot easier to be motivated if you have the discipline to focus on commitment and congruence. It's all interconnected here. So what do? What happens if you realize you fell down that rabbit hole of other focused and self-abandoning behaviors? All right, well, it's okay. Get back to basics first. Spend some time alone with you. It doesn't have to be all day. It could be 20 minutes a day. It could be a couple hours on a weekend. Get away from everyone for a moment in whatever way you can so you can get clear with yourself. Get some quiet, take a nap, meditate, journal, yoga, whatever you have to do. Then, once you have written down some things, some realities of what happened, how you feel about that, and where you want to be instead, then I encourage you to reconnect with those in your life, even if it's just one person, who will remind you of who you are and what you said you wanted for yourself, and lovingly kick you in the pants and help you back up on that horse. Getting basic means looking at your self-care, look at your self-discipline, your sleep, your nutrition, your play. Clean up whatever went to the wayside so you can feel like you have regrouped and can start again, especially those of you who struggle with beating yourself up. You're probably not going to let yourself get back to those things that you want or want to advocate for if your house is a mess and things aren't being taken care of. Get those things taken care of, you'll feel better about yourself. You know why, right? Because if you can trust yourself to do that stuff, then you can trust yourself to do the harder things. But if you can't trust yourself to even do basic self-care, it's really going to be tough to show up in areas of your life where you need to be motivated and confident. Look at your boundaries. Get some love and help and a coach to help you if you struggle with those. Think about what you need to say no to. How do you say no to yourself as well to not pile on anything else in the next 30 days if you can help it? And part of this planning is looking ahead. Take responsibility. Don't let life show up and play innocent like you can't understand why you're so busy. When you knew the holidays were coming, you knew these things were going to be showing up. Get intentional, make compromises, get clear, refocus. What can stay, what needs to go, what you have no business putting on your plate, even if it's a wonderful thing. Get into reality and make that reality real by slowly re-engaging with healthier habits. And finally, work on detaching, letting go of what others think, feel, and need. Those are valid for them. Let them be about them. Make sure as you're reconnecting with healthier people in your life that they kindly encourage you to detach and to talk you off the ledge when you're dealing with perhaps some toxic people in your life who are making it really hard to get back to you. That's going to happen. Here's why. Think about the math for a moment. If you didn't have some unhealthy people around you, someone would be holding you accountable like, hey, how about school? Or how about that job change you said you were going to do? They're not going to feel comfortable allowing you just to ignore yourself or ignore what is good for you. They're going to want good for you. And to stay in your life, really, they're going to need you to take care of yourself because they want to have respect for you as well. So we got to think about that too. So today we talked about how motivation is a big part of assertiveness and how confidence is built or broken, like we said last week, about how much we can stay focused regardless of what life throws at us or even what we do to ourselves. We explored the typical motivation killers that can creep into our life and take over before we know it. Then we talked about how to get back to you and what you want for your life. And that doesn't have to be all or nothing either. It could be you slip a little bit like, oh, let me get back on track. It's all good. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some helpful things to take with you. May you stay healthy and focused. Hold on to hope. Write down 3 things that you love about yourself this week. Then write down 3 things you love about someone else in your life. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. Sign up for the newsletter there if you don't already get it. And share it with your friends if you'd like to. So, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.